Hey, right now it's time for another one-on-one segment. This time Eric sits down with our very own Jim Slaton, a Special Forces Army Ranger and a parachute artist. Before Eric and Jim get into their stances for one-on-one, please check out this video of some of Jim's adventures.
Seconds.
Jumping.
Boom, 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 boom.
That was intense. I was petrified.
It's a high-risk scenario. Do not try this at home. It's like driving your car on the freeway doing 60 in rush hour traffic and the brakes going out. You still have to negotiate the traffic, but you can't slow down. More mountain climbers die on Mount Blanc than any other mountain in the world, including Mount Everest.
It was serious. There's no doubt about it.
This isn't Disneyland. This is above 16,000 feet, and it's cold and it's windy, and it's still going to be, challenging. Thinking I might not see these guys again. This is it. That is the point. You're at the very edge of what we do.
You were just seeing Jim Slaton right there. That's pretty unbelievable stuff. Pretty incredible. Would you call yourself a daredevil of sorts? Is it something that you kind of get into it and it's almost like it's a rush? It's something that feeds into it. You're like, man, I got to do that again.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it starts that way, but it ends up that way, It definitely daredevil, yeah.
Now, you're from Amarillo,
yeah.
Going back to kind of the beginning of this. Is that considered, when you're Amarillo natives, do they consider that West Texas, is that North Texas? When you're from Amarillo, what part of Texas do you say you're people from?
The Panhandle.
The Panhandle, okay.
Yeah, the Panhandle.
People that I'm from Midland, Texas. He's from Amarillo. Midland's about 4 hours south of Amarillo.
Yeah.
Kind of West Texas. But it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's rough living up there, but it's at the same time, it's, you know what, everybody has to earn their keep. Is that something, now you're an Army Airborne Ranger, right?
Yep.
Now, was there that kind of upbringing, that kind of, I guess, community that you grew up in kind of lend yourself towards that kind of mindset?
Yeah, not really. Not really. I think it was, I left there when I was 16,
okay.
and went to Waco, went to school in Waco, and then I kind of joined the Army. So it didn't happen for me there in Amarillo. It happened for me once I joined the Army. Once I joined the Army, I became, went to airborne school and a Ranger, and then got a little taste for it.
Well, what was it when you moved to Waco, and what was it at that point that made you want to join the Army? What was the calling from that?
It was Operation Desert Shield. So it was 1990. So the Gulf War was getting ready to take off, and so all the men in my family have all been in the military, from World War II to Vietnam. So I'm my only son. So when I saw that, I was like, this is I was 19.
Sure.
So I was like, all right, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. So I called up the recruiter. It was at that time you couldn't get anyone to join the military.
Really?
Yeah, because it was in the middle of the
sure.
The Operation Desert Shield, and that's all you saw on TV was the Gulf and Kuwait and all that crap. But I just called up the recruiter and said, hey, I want to join the Army, and he was so excited. I mean, he drove 2 hours in the snow to pick me up. He was like, all right,
Now, how was that experience for you? I mean, was it everything that, obviously, like you said, you come from a long line of family that have been in the military. What was that experience like for you? Was that something that you look back on and say it shaped who the person you are now? Is it something that maybe you wish you didn't make that call? Like how was that?
Yeah, no, I'd do it again. I'd go as far as saying I would be okay if every male had to join the military for at least 2 years, but that's a little far-fetched. But it definitely changes, and you have to grow up. You join the Army, one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to do well, or they're going to boot you out.
Yeah.
So
and
some people just can't.
It's kind of a put up or shut up kind of.
Yeah,
Now, where does the Rangers start taking place in here? You're in the Army now for a year or so, and you sign up to go to Ranger School. How's that work?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be an Airborne Ranger, so I went to the recruiter and says, hey, I want to be an Airborne Ranger, and he says, hey, you just don't become an Airborne Ranger. We can't promise you that, but there's certain jobs that could get you in that position. So I said, hey, give me one. They said, okay, you're going to be a forward observer, which is kind of like a scout,
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the Army like 2 years, and then the slot came up and said, you want to try? and they sent me to the school.
Now, and you go to the school, and for how long is that school for?
Yeah, the whole training goes on for months. You know, the better part of 6 months.
Now, what's the first thing they do? They take you up in the plane and say, "Do you really want to jump out of here?" They try to scare you at first. Yeah, what's the training like?
Oh yeah, they try to get as many people as possible to quit.
Sure.
They want to just wash out all the people that really don't want it. So airborne school's first. You get on the airplane, you know, there's people puking on the plane, and you're having to step over it, and a lot of people just quit. And week by week, more people quit, and and if you're the last
now,
one
are
to
you
stand,
jumping every day?
for the first couple of weeks, you're jumping a lot. Yep.
And now, when you land, do they pick you back up in the plane and like, all right, let's go again, or is it one a day, 2 a day? I mean,
Yeah.
what's it like? Is it kind of
one a day? Yeah, because it's all this prep work and stuff, and
you just don't go and jump out of a plane?
right.
Obviously.
No, you don't. But
Now you've going into the, I guess, the documentary world. You've produced a documentary called Out of the Blue. What was that about?
yeah, so once I got out of the military, I pursued skydiving. And military parachuting and skydiving is not the same. You know, military is round parachutes, and you don't control where you land. You just get, the wind blows and you land.
Sure.
But skydiving, you have these very controlled, you know, these small maneuverable parachutes. So I got into it. I got a lot of experience, and I said, hey, I became a test jumper for a parachute company. I said, hey, we could take these parachutes and we could do things that's never been done before, like, I don't know, fly down mountains like the
Sure.
Alps in Europe. So I went and I hand selected some of the best parachutists in the world, and we formed a team, and we went out and challenged ourselves to do this stuff.
Now, what's your favorite challenge that you guys have come up with? What was something that that if you could do it, if you got one more jump that you would do?
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. Maybe, you know, landing on a summit of one of the world's largest mountains. You know, originally that was our idea: take the 5 highest mountains in the world and land parachutes on the summit of all of them. But by the time we got to our second mountain, we realized it's way too crazy. So, you know, we were in Switzerland at the Eiger Mountain, and then the next year we did Mount Blanc in France. And after Mount Blanc, we were just like, you know, we barely survived that. So we just were going to cut our losses.
Now, obviously, people associate skydiving obviously with fun and with adrenaline, but at the same time, you've had a couple scary moments, especially a major one in 2006. What happened?
Right. So your average skydiver, they don't get hurt that much. It's really safe these days. They even have a computer device that goes in the parachute that even if you don't pull and you freak out or you pass out, it'll automatically pull at a certain altitude. So that's safe. What's dangerous is the really experienced skydivers that are pushing the limits all the time. So that's what we were doing. You know, after I had about 10,000 skydives, we were pushing the limits, and we were filming a commercial in Los Angeles, and the camera guy was flying a parachute. He had a helmet with the camera mounted, and we'd been doing it all day long, and we just flew a little too close, and the parachutes got entangled, and we spun to the ground. And I just woke up 3 days later out of a coma, looked over, and there was my partner in the hospital bed next to me, and I realized, oh man, I must have messed up. And it was bad, you know. It was shattered hip, femur, shoulder. It was bad. It was like
Now, how quickly, when you were cleared, did you go back up?
a year.
So you waited a year. I mean, it took you a full year. Was that just for rehab, or just to work up the goal to go back up there
It
again?
was just the physical recovery time.
So mentally you weren't scarred too badly by it. A little bit.
Little bit, yeah.
Now, you're a big, so you say you're a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yeah, right.
How did that work out? Did that something you just loved them growing up, or you know, is your dad's favorite team, or?
Yeah, well, when you grew up in the 70s, there were 2 things that kids liked, and that was Evel Knievel and the Steelers, you know, because of the Iron Curtain. But yeah, father was a Steeler fan. So, you know, furniture was yellow and black, you know, covers are yellow and black. So
you got one more jump to do. Where are you doing it?
You know,
One last jump, rest of your life. Where do you want to? Where you want to jump out of? What are you doing?
maybe if I had enough money and support Mount Everest.
Try to jump to the summit of Mount Everest?
Yeah, it can be done, but it's a lot of money, training. You know,
getting it all together?
Yeah, it's just a huge project.
Well, go ahead and take that one for me. All right.
All right.
I appreciate you going one-on-one,
yeah.
Jim. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
My name is Jim Slaton with Icarus's Team Extreme. The turbulence on the mountain itself is just so massive. It's one of the biggest mountains in Europe, in the Swiss Alps. A lot of jagged rocks, sheer cliff. We're not over the peak of the mountain. We got enough altitude, obviously, for a malfunction sort of thing. Short delay above 5 seconds. Canopy opens, obviously, pretty quick. Air is very thin. And then game on.
And the Lions, with an 88-yard touchdown run from Javid Best, take a 10-point lead in this game. Wow, he was running as fast as Jim Slaton goes down those mountains and those
He was flying.
Yeah.
Literally
out of
and
control.
All he was
figuratively.
missing was a little smoke trail or whatever that was trailing behind him.
Just fit it the wrong way.